Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. What's up, Colts Nation? Welcome back to the Bring the Juice podcast. So we have special guest on us with us today from the Indianapolis Star, Mr. Jim Ayello. Jim, thanks for joining us, man. And the Colts today, man, they had their first what they call game-like practice in Lucas Oil Stadium, right? It's a game simulation type of thing, full pads, full tackling, all that stuff. We wanted to dedicate this stream, man, to just kind of hearing your thoughts on today and some of your takeaways from this padded practice, because this is really the first game-like action that we've seen from the Colts this year, from their new revamped team. So first off, before we do that, congratulations, man, on the new kid, man.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Awesome, man.
Thank you. I'm sitting in I don't know if you guys are watching. I'm sitting in the baby's room now. That's the crib right there.
Oh, wow.
So
Nice.
He took over the office. So yeah, now it's his room. So
Gotcha.
he's not in there, so we're good. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah. Let's not wake anything up, but
Yeah,
no,
right.
no. He's downstairs torturing my wife, but yeah. No, we're
oh man. All right, let's get
That's
into
funny.
a few quick comments here before we get into some stuff today. Reese KFN's already in here. Reese, good to see you, man. Always know you're in here. Fitty Rap's in here. Good to see you. Gary Thompson from the stream yesterday. I remember. Elliot, it stinks you weren't in here yesterday, man. It was definitely a good one. Justin Whitmer's in here, as always. Good to see. Gary Thompson saying Ty Lewis balling out again. I guess that's kind of a good thing to go into, Jim. I mean, we've been talking about it so much over the last week that every day we've been seeing Tyquan Lewis. There's something that's going on. He beat Quintin Nelson in a rep in one-on-ones. He's looked really good. He in today's scrimmage, he obviously had some few good plays. So, I mean, what was it like seeing Tyquan Lewis? I mean, is he living up to the hype that we're seeing?
Yeah, see, that's the thing too. So you guys don't know, but I was on paternity like last week. So I've been following, reading along, all that stuff, but I didn't get to see it in person. And I had the same questions you guys did today. I'm like, I'm going to watch Tyquan Lewis and see if the hype is real. And man, that guy was everywhere. Frank Reich said today, he just keeps showing up every day. And one of the most impressive plays he made was just bursting through the backfield, and he almost took the handoff away from Nyheim Hines. He caused the fumble. I mean, I'm not kidding. He almost grabbed it himself. The guy just looks like a different animal out there. And we get a chance to ask Justin Houston about him. And he's like, well, I mean, it's one of those things you always hear their teammates say. He's playing with confidence. But one of the things that he said he's playing with confidence because defensive line coach Buddy Baker has pretty much said, encouraged him, I guess, to play to his strengths. Just play to his quickness, use the leverage that you have, essentially do the things that made Chris Ballard think you were a second-round pick. Those are the things that Buddy Baker is encouraging him to do. And I think, like a young player, again, this is a guy that had some injuries, had some success early in his career, but then the confidence kind of fell off a cliff when when he didn't get to get on the field and then didn't get to produce. And it's hard to rebound from those things. Well, he's having a really good camp, which he really needed to. We heard Chris Ballard, he pretty much sent that message right before at the end of last year saying, this is a big camp for Tyquan if he wants to be part of this team. So he had the motivation. He clearly has been focused all offseason. I think he looks great. Now, again, I didn't get to see him too close enough personal, but I think he looks like he's in great shape, and he certainly looks fast. So, man, this is a guy that if he is what they think he could have, what he was when he was coming out of college and what he looked like today, man, that's a huge boost for that defensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Cody's been saying it a lot the last few days, and it's what you just said, and I think what a lot of the coaching staff has credited the defensive line coach for being able to get through to Lewis. I think they just have a better relationship right now, and it just seems to have Tyquan Lewis in more of a mental state right now where he just feels like he can play again.
I think you just got to get him back to Columbus. You know what I mean? Get him into how he felt in Ohio State, and get him feeling like he's one of the most dominant, disruptive defensive linemen, because that's what he was in college. He was a guy that showed incredible promise. Obviously, you knew there was going to be a little bit of development time. And again, he just didn't really get it with some of the injuries he was dealing with his rookie year and then the injuries he dealt with last year. And then he's trying to cycle himself in. He's trying to push himself in practice. And again, I think Tyquan, I think all players are like this, but Tyquan in particular is a guy that I think really needs confidence to thrive. And it looks like Buddy Baker is a great hire, worth whatever he's been paid to be the new D-line coach, because he's gotten through to Tyquan so far. And again, it's preseason. There are training camp stars all the time that don't end up panning out. So we don't want to get too carried away. Right. But again, this is This is, and these are the kind of things where you see receivers make flashy catches in training camp and everybody gets excited. Those are the things I don't really buy into as much because they're one or two plays later. But like you mentioned, beating a guy like Quintin Nelson, even today, beating Jake Elginkamp, who is, again, not a starter, but a solid guard. I mean, doing the things that he's doing, that to me, I don't know why, but it feels a little bit more real to me than just like a random big catch by a wide receiver.
Yeah, and so obviously we said he obviously tackled Nyheim Hines, made him fumble. Who was the one that picked it up? Because I saw multiple people saying it was Farrah Green, it was DeForest Buckner. I don't know who it was. Do you happen to know who it was that picked up the fumble?
No, I don't even have my notes with me, but I'm not even sure I jotted that down. I'm not sure I got it. I was pretty focused on Tyquan forcing that fumble. It's weird. Today was a scrimmage in a way that it seemed like an actual game, but occasionally, if they didn't convert the third down, they would just do third down again, or that they scored a touchdown, they would do another play from the red zone, or they'd kick multiple extra points. So it was a little, sometimes it was very much like a game, and other times it was like, okay, we have some things we want to get through, a script we need to get through. So, yeah, I think I'm making an excuse for myself for not writing down who got the fumble, but yeah, that's yeah.
You're good, man. You're good. I'll have to do some more in-depth stuff here, but Cody, I'll let you chime in on something here. But again, for the 50 of you that are in here right now watching this, thank you so much for being here. Cody, did you have something there?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Jim, because this would be your first time speaking of the defensive line, seeing DeForest Buckner in action. I mean, we've seen photos of him just towering over all the other defensive linemen. What did you see from Buckner today here and really some live rep action?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the first thing that stands out to you is kind of just how massive he is. I remember the first time I grew up in Chicago, and I used to go to training camp a lot. And I remember the first time I ever went to Bears camp, and it was right after they had signed Julius Peppers. And I was just like, it just kind of blew me away that guy was not playing, power forward in the NBA. And that's kind of, DeForest isn't quite the size of Julius Peppers, but when I saw him today, I was like, oh, like, you see the measurements, but you don't really know until you get it in person. Now, I will say today, as far as like making big plays and having splash plays, not really, didn't have a lot today, but I do think he was effective. Now, the offensive line, I think if you were going to give, who won, offensive line or defensive line today, it's got to be the offensive line. They especially coming out of halftime, they really dominated. So I said, DeForest Buckner, I don't think stood out today. Nothing I would worry about by any means. It's just one of those things, but he definitely is going to cause a lot of problems in the interior. He's definitely going to bottle up runs and get pressure on the quarterback. I'm not totally concerned about him, but no, I hate to change the subject back to Tyquan, but the Star, I just remembered he batted down a pass. I remember he just got in full space and had a bad down pass too. So man, that guy was really, really good today. And again, a lot of people are expecting DeForest Buckner to elevate the play of the players around him. Maybe that's what we're seeing a little bit out of Tyquan Lewis.
Certainly hope so. Getting a couple comments here. Stephen Wells, good stream last night. Thank you. 17 days away from the NFL season start. That's obviously great news. Let's see here. Saying, y'all think Okereke is going to be a Pro Bowl caliber this year. That's been a good point. I've seen a couple of clips that Okereke has been doing really well in pass coverage. I haven't heard a lot on Okereke, but did he stand out at all today? He make any plays? What happened with him?
No, I wouldn't say Bobby had a big day. Like I said, the linebackers look really good. Darius blew up a couple screen plays. Anthony Walker was jumping some runs early in the game. But Okereke, again, you try not to read too much into these things. And again, it's also possible I missed it. You're watching 22 guys and you're jotting down notes, but it wasn't anything that I saw that stood out. But again, I wouldn't say, and again, for Bobby, I think predicting a Pro Bowl is a little bit unfair for him. I don't think he's going to get on the field enough to make a Pro Bowl. Anthony Walker's going to play, and Darius Leonard's going to play, and you just don't play three linebackers that often. And so while Bobby will get on the field and it has all the tools to be a Pro Bowl linebacker, let's pump the brakes a little bit here. He's going to be really good, especially like you mentioned in pass coverage. He's going to be able to go one-on-one with running backs and probably some tight ends too. But just give him a minute.
Yeah, it's funny because we've seen like a lot of Colts Nation. I don't know if you've seen it too, but a lot of Colts Nation, a lot of Colts fans are thinking Okereke should just take Anthony Walker's spot right now. Like Anthony Walker should give way to the more athletic guy. But I've been one of the biggest fans of his, saying that he really solidifies the middle of this defense. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. You can't just dump a guy like Anthony Walker. It's he's not flashy, so maybe that's why people don't like it. But did everybody forget he had like 400 tackles against Jacksonville at the end of last year? I mean, he was like insane in that game, and that was a game, by the way, that the rest of the Colts looked like trash, and he played out of his mind. And that's the kind of player that he is. He's just a leader. He's a guy who brings it every game. I don't think I mean, there are times where he has rough games. I think he beat himself up after the New Orleans game, which every Colts player should have at that point. And he'll get beaten pass coverage. He's not great there. But again, against the run and in terms of just matching up one-on-one with quarterbacks, you want somebody who is smart and somebody who knows, like, who can adjust the defensive line, who can adjust linebackers, and change coverage, do those kind of things on the fly. Anthony Walker is that guy. Anthony Walker is an incredibly intelligent middle linebacker. He's one, and again, everybody loves him. Darius Leonard loves Anthony Walker. The guys around this team love Anthony Walker. And again, that sounds like an intangible thing that, doesn't mean anything, but it does. They love having him on the field. They love having him out there. He's versatile. He was able to move over to Darius Leonard's spot when Darius Leonard got hurt last year. You cannot just dump a guy like Anthony Walker and then insert Bobby Okereke. As talented as he is, you need to give both of these guys some time. Bobby needs to come to develop. He needs time to come along for sure. And they will split time. They had a nice little rotation going at the end of last year. But no, you can't kick Anthony Walker to the curb.
I totally agree. I've been saying that for a while. I sometimes feel like I'm an underdog when it comes to that argument. But for 65 of you in here, thank you to everyone that's still coming in. Ask some questions, guys. Let's answer some questions today about what happened.
Yeah.
Here's one. How did the corners look today? I didn't see a ton from the corners today.
It's a funny question you asked because I was sitting next to Coach Venturi and he was getting mad because he was like, not only did he want to see some of the outside weapons get worked in, but he said, you got to throw to the outside so you can see what you got in your corners. And they really didn't test them very often today. Today was a lot about the tight ends. I think they threw, again, I hate to exaggerate too much, but they threw about 200 or 300 passes to the running backs today. I mean, it's all Nyheim Hines, Marlon Mack, Jonathan Taylor, all showing off good hands, which is a really good thing. But they really didn't throw at the corners quite a bit. Xavier Rhodes was really good in coverage on a particular play that I remember. It was a zone blitz, but he was all over. Gosh, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Michael Pittman, and I think he broke up a pass. So that was an encouraging thing to see. Obviously, Xavier Rhodes becoming that guy he was 3 years ago is a big key to the success of this Colts defense. But again, it wasn't something that I think the corners really stood out. I think today was kind of more about the defensive line, more about the linebackers. Unfortunately, there just wasn't a lot out of the corners right now. And it's a good question because really they're going to be a huge part of, I think they're maybe the biggest question mark on the defense. You don't know if Rock had a really solid end of the year. Last 8 games, he was really good, especially after that Denver game that everybody remembers. But he played really, really well. And if he takes another step forward, that's great. You know what you're getting out of Kenny Moore. He's a Pro Bowl level corner out of the slot. And then Xavier Rhodes is a huge question mark. I mean, he's definitely lost a step, I think, in terms of speed and athleticism, but he's a smart guy. He can make up for it doing the things that Matt Eberflus wants him to do, which is playing well in zones and playing the run really, really well. That's one of the big reasons they got him was that he could play the run and is a willing tackler. And so those are the things he can do to kind of make up for maybe that step that he lost that he had earlier in his career. So good question, honestly, and I wish I had a better answer for it, but because corners are going to be a big question mark this year, and they will be helped by an improved defensive line. But that's something we are definitely going to have to wait and see.
Yeah, let's stick with the defensive line really quick because a couple names that we of note. Al-Qadim Muhammad, I saw some praise for him today. A solid, really good player. I think I saw Stephen Holder's tweet that was basically saying Al-Qadim Muhammad's a really good player that you shouldn't sleep on for that other defensive end position. Well, what are your thoughts, Jim, on Al-Qadim Muhammad and kind of what you saw from him today?
Today, it made me feel silly that all offseason we were like, how are they going to replace Jabal Sheard? What are they going to do to replace Jabal Sheard? Like, this is going to be a big problem. And I watched Al-Qadim Muhammad today. I'm like, oh, never mind. It's all right. They're going to be fine. Like, it's not going to just be him. Jabal Sheard's a really good player. I'm not saying they're on totally equal plane. But Al-Qadim looked really good today. He beat Anthony Costanzo around the edge on a play for a sack, or as much of a sack you can get in a scrimmage like this. Obviously not allowed to touch the quarterbacks, but he looked really good. Another guy that got some penetration on some runs, but again, better in the pass rush than I expected to see out of him. So maybe you get a little bit more than you got out of Sheard. Sheard was a guy that it was weird. Like you almost didn't notice, but he would finish this year with 8 sacks somehow. You're like, oh, I don't know how he got 8 sacks. Al-Quadin Muhammad might be that guy. Maybe he can do that and still help against the run. And he's going to have plenty of help along the defensive line with a lot of other guys kind of cycling through. I mean, we're talking about Tyquan Lewis. Danico Autry can still play, and he's going to have to find a spot now that DeForest Buckner has replaced him at the 3 technique. Rob Windsor is going to get in there sometimes, so there's going to be some guys that are going to rotate in and try to, going to fill by committee. But if Muhammad plays like he did today, he's going to get a majority of the snaps.
Yeah. And also Ben Banigou. I mean, he performed pretty well and obviously had that injury. What did you see from Banigou? First off, how productive he was, and then maybe potentially the severity of that injury and what happened.
Yeah. I think thankfully, I'll start with the second part of your question. Thankfully, he escaped with a minor injury. And again, it's, we're hours after this happened, but Frank Reich said he talked to him in the locker room and said it seems like a relatively minor injury. He doesn't expect him to miss much time. Again,
that's great.
Things can change tomorrow. Yeah, for sure. I mean, Frank, you could see the relief on his face a little bit too, because that's one of the places where, in terms of speed rushers, don't really have a lot of depth there, especially with Kamoko still not on the field yet. And so I think that's obviously key not to have him miss any time, especially when you're talking about, I mean, there's no good injury really for a pass rusher, but the left ankle, you want him to be able to plant and to make those moves and cuts that he needs to make. Again, not even total. It looks like he's going to be okay. They did cart him off. Like they carted him around to the team, and then they, instead of him walking off the field, they kind of carted him into the locker room, but he was able to limp off the field by himself. So I think it maybe looked worse than it actually was. And then to address the first part of your question, before the injury, it's speed. He just looks fast. I mean, he just looks like a guy that they can use on the edge and can wreak some havoc, especially on third downs, and cycle him through. Again, if he looks like that, like he did today, the loss of I should rephrase that. I want to say the loss of Kamoko, but it's getting a little concerning that we haven't seen Kamoko on the field yet, just in terms of, are we going to have him for week 1, week 2, that kind of a thing. So if Banigou is healthy, that will help.
Yeah, as somebody, Ben Banigou, who we've had the pleasure of interviewing this offseason, and he did a giveaway for us. We like the guy. And the first thing I saw with that tweet, I saw the tweet of Ben Banigou carted off field. I'm like, oh no. That's immediately what you think. You think carted off field, that means, it's a knee or something. But
I mean, especially after last year with what happened with Reese. Oh my goodness.
Right.
Absolutely. Anytime you hear that, you're just like, you're kind of like, your stomach drops a little bit. You're like, oh my goodness. Like,
no, it's definitely one of those things where you saw it again. It's one of those two where the trainers spent a lot of time with him on the ground. You really want to see those guys just pop right back up after an injury like that. He was on the ground for a few minutes. You're like, oh God, the longer he's there, the worse it seems to be. But then he got up and limped off. So you're like, okay, that's not bad. And then the cart comes over and it all gets confusing. You're not sure what's happening. But again, Frank seemed pretty relieved after having talked to him in the locker room. So hopefully that's good news for Ben and the Colts.
Yeah. So for everyone that's in the chat, thank you for your questions. We may not get to all of them because, like I said, we're trying to keep Jim on a time constraint here. I'm sure he doesn't want to be here for 4 hours asking every question. But 60 of you still in here. Thank you for being here. This is one I wanted to get at right here. Who looked better today, Mack or JT? Because from what I saw, from what Costanza was saying and from what others were saying, Mack had a really, really good day from what I heard.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the clear winner was Marlon Mack, and that's no knock at Jonathan Taylor. The guy can clearly play. And again, me seeing him for the first time in full speed, he's an impressive specimen just in terms of size and speed. But Marlon today looked like he was just ready to go. Like he had taken all that off-season conjecture about his job and was like, all right, let's go. I'll show you something. And not only that, let me highlight before we get into the big runs, which were great, but Marlon Mack caught the ball today and caught it with ease. I mean, he looked really good in the passing game. Now, I will tell you, there are members of the media and the Colts media who will tease me quite a bit because I anticipated last year, I even made a small side wager with Joel Erickson at the Indy Star, that Marlon was going to have a big game catching the ball once last year. I think he was going to have one game catching, I think I said 8 passes, and everyone laughed at me. And clearly they were wrong or right to laugh at me because I think he only caught, 3 was his high. But I really thought that Frank was going to want to set the precedent for defenses, that Marlon was going to be at least something you have to worry about out of the backfield as a pass catcher and have that dual threat ability, especially when you get into, third and short situations or no huddle situations. When you have Marlon out there, you want people to know, hey, you have to make sure you have a linebacker on him or a safety on him if he catches the ball out of the backfield. Now, that didn't work out, but I always thought Marlon had that ability, and it looks like he does. It really does. And Phillip Rivers is a running back, or is a pass-catching running back's best friend. He's going to pepper you with the passes. So if Marlon does have the ability, then it's going to work out really, really well for him. We know that Nyheim Hines has that ability. It looks like Jonathan Taylor does too. I mean, we've seen some of that in Wisconsin. We've seen some of that in camp already. But Marlon, I thought, did a really, really good job of showing some soft hands and some reliability in the pass-catching game. Now, to get to the running, it was more vintage Marlon. The things that you saw last year in his best games, the patience that you saw, he was on display. He almost broke Malik Hooker's ankles in the hole at one point. I mean, it was the move he put on Malik. I feel bad because, like I said, I don't know if the Colts have tweeted out the highlight yet, but I don't think Malik wants that out there. And then on the I think it was the first play out of halftime that Marlon just broke one out to the right side, and you saw his pure speed. Now, I don't know if I would like to see him versus Jonathan Taylor. I think Taylor's probably a little faster in his 40 time, but man, Marlon can run. So it was a guy, he just kind of burned people around the right side. It was a 47-yard touchdown, or what would have been a 47-yard touchdown. So Marlon looked fantastic. And it's one of those things too, where as a fantasy player or something like that, yeah, you got to maybe pick, but as a Colts fan, just sit back and enjoy the fact that you got both these guys.
Yeah, that's me. I mean, It has to look good for a fantasy perspective, like what we've seen in camp so far with what is up with them wanting to throw to the running back so much. I have not seen this. I know Nyheim Hines can do it because we've seen it. We've never seen Marlon Mack be this active in the passing game. We don't expect Jonathan Taylor to do much, but even he's been getting a lot of reps. Like, what is going on? Why is Frank Reich and them doing so much with these running backs in the pass game?
They're catering their offense to Phillip Rivers. That's what you're seeing. I mean, you're seeing Phillip Rivers. This is a guy that loved to throw to running backs. Not just, I mean, I think a lot of people made the Danny Woodhead, Nyheim Hines comparison, but like, look back at Melvin Gordon's career catches. That guy's numbers shot up in the last couple of years when so they threw to him quite a bit, and Austin Eckler, obviously. And so those look at those numbers and how comfortable Phillip Rivers feels throwing to those guys. And I think he said, hey, I know we have Nyheim, but what about these other guys? Can they catch? And it looks like they can. And so that's one of those things I think that's going to make Phillip feel more at home in this Colts offense. Now, he's going to pepper tight ends like we know he will. Jack Doyle, Trey Burton are in for big seasons. We know that. And he's going to chuck it downfield and let these guys go get it and let T.Y. Hilton and Pittman and Campbell thrive. But this is a guy that really, really does like throwing to running backs. And again, not just checkdowns, not just screens. If you looked around today, like Nyheim Hines was lining up everywhere. He lined up outside. He lined up in the slot. He was catching passes out of the backfield. They're really going to try to, I think, amp up their game in terms of throwing to running backs. And why not? You got three playmakers, guys who can make people miss. And if you're going to put, average to maybe above average speed linebackers against those three, you're going to get beat. And the Colts are going to win those matchups and like those matchups. I'm not even a Cubs fan. I don't even know where that came from.
I'm a Reds fan, so that certainly doesn't make me happy.
I apologize.
I think here's the comment here. Has Pittman been a standout? We've seen a lot from him in camp, but did he do anything in practice today?
Yeah, he did. He looked great. He had a couple of really nice snags. I thought he had the most impressive catch. The best play was probably the Rivers to T.Y. Hilton touchdown. The Colts actually just tweeted out that video if you want to see it. It was a great toe tap by Hilton to make sure that caught. And it was a really good throw too. You can't really see, but he kind of threads a needle there. So that was a really great play. But I thought the best catch was Desmond Patton. I can't remember the DB he had him. It was second team, but he had a DB draped all over him, and he did a really good job of using his body. He's a big guy and going up and using and getting the ball. And credit to I think it was Chad Kelly that threw that pass, and Chad Kelly just said, "Hey, I'm going to put this up high and let you go get it," and he did. And Patton made a couple good catches. Another one that stood out to me, he was playing with Jacoby Brissett, and we'll just say this: Jacoby Brissett we know has a cannon. He hasn't always used the proper touch as we'd like sometimes on some shorter throws. This was about 7 or 8 yards away, I thought, and he ripped one at Desmond Patton, and Patton just caught it and brought it in, no problem, and tucked it right away. And like I said, I mean, at that point, if you're Jacoby Brissett, like, why would you throw it any softer if you know your receivers can do that? And Patton made it look easy. I thought it was a bullet. I thought maybe, again, me watching, I was like, I would have thrown that give it a little more touch, but clearly Patton didn't care. He just grabbed it and kept going. So, no, I thought he looked really, really good today. Definitely more of a standout today today. Let's emphasize that than Pittman. Pittman didn't have any catches today, but again, I wouldn't worry about that. But in terms of the rookie receivers, Pittman looked great.
I was going to say, yeah, I wanted to talk about Pittman because a lot of people have had conflicting feelings about Pittman's camp so far. I mean, I've seen some people in this chat saying that, Pittman's not looked good at all, really. I mean, they said that Xavier Rhodes has been locking him down a lot, and we obviously know Rock Ya-Sin had that one great play where he knocked the ball out of Pittman's hands in the end zone. We saw that one, and then you see other people that are actually there that are saying, Pittman's had some decent catches. He's been getting involved. He may not be as active as they want, but I mean, it's a process for everyone. How's Pittman look to you?
He looks good. He looks fine. Like I said, I've only got a chance to see him today, but I talked to Joel Erickson, actually talked to a couple other writers. They all think, I think he said one drop in camp that they've seen so far. One, not a big deal. That's going to happen to everybody. T.Y. Hilton had a drop today on a wide receiver screen, so it happens. I mean, I think Hilton went through all of camp last year with no drops, but he had the one today. But yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. This guy he's a really smart guy, first of all, so he's going to learn this offense, and then once he does, he's going to thrive. I talked to TJ Houshmandzadeh, the former NFL wide receiver. He's his coach in the offseason. He said it's going to take a little time for all rookie receivers, but for Michael too, especially, you just don't see the type of man-to-man defense that they play in the NFL. You just don't see that in college as much. Yeah. Secondly, in the NFL, there aren't that many. Let me say it this way: there aren't that many corners the size of Xavier Rhodes in college football. Xavier Rhodes is a big guy, and if he wants to play press and push you around, he's going to do it. Especially to a young guy who doesn't quite know how to get out. So that was one of those things that TJ Houshmandzadeh worked a lot with Pittman, was how to get out of your out of your break, I guess. Well, out of the breaks, one, but that out of press coverage is the other thing that he was working on. God, I'm stuttering through all this. No, but those are the two things that he really wanted him to work on, and said those are the things that he just didn't see a lot. That one thing in particular, press coverage, he didn't see that a lot in college. So it's going to be a bit of a process. The other thing I think people don't quite realize, it's kind of funny to like, you think about Phillip Rivers and they all say, oh, Michael Pittman's exactly the kind of receiver he likes to throw to. Well, sure, that is true. But let's think about this. We've been told 100 times, especially by Nick Sirianni, this passing offense is going to run through T.Y. Hilton, right?
Yeah.
We know that. Paris Campbell has had a year in this offense. I know it wasn't a successful one, but he knows it. He's getting better. He's had a really good camp so far. They're going to use him. We just talked about how he's going to throw to running backs. We know he likes throwing to tight ends. Not everybody's going to get all the ball all the time. We're already talking about 5 or 6 players here. So let's keep in mind, Pittman's probably going to be option number 4, option number 5, not as a receiver, but again, he's going to be behind T.Y. Hilton. I think he might be behind Paris Campbell. He's definitely going to be behind Jack Doyle. You still got the running backs to deal with. You don't need an 80-catch, 1,200-yard, 8-touchdown season out of Michael Pittman. You just don't. You have enough weapons to make it work. And now, again, if they all get hurt, different story. But right now, just take it easy. Give them some time. Receivers usually takes a couple seasons for receivers to get acclimated to the NFL, the way it's played and the game speed and those things. So he needs more than just, one scrimmage.
Gotcha. And Cody, I'll let you go, but the 80 people that are in here, thank you. Keep asking questions. Go ahead, Cody.
No, when you said that, Jim, about just not rushing him along, not expecting him to come out there and, be the bona fide number 2 wide receiver, it kind of got me thinking. We released a video earlier today about Julian Blackmon and the Colts potentially activating him in a couple of weeks. Yeah. And Derek and I talked about it. And he asked the question, like, do you think that the Colts need to rush, have him, playing right away when he's coming back? I know obviously he's coming off an injury, but I think the beauty of what the Colts have built is the fact that some of these guys who are young, who need time to develop, they have the chance to do that and sit behind some guys, and they don't have to come in and plug and play right away as rookies and have, major impacts right away. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But the cool thing is they have the depth that is able to withstand if they don't right away.
No, they don't need to rush. I 100% agree with you. They do not need to rush Julian Blackmon back. They have Malik Hooker. They have Kari Willis. They have Tavon Wilson now, who I know they like. They have George Odom. I mean, they have depth. The cool thing about the way Matt Eberflus kind of runs his defense is it's not just kind of bang or bust. It's not just you're the starter and you're playing 100% of the snaps. It's I'm going to mix everybody in. Everyone's going to get some time. So when Blackman's ready, he will play. But he's not going to play 40 snaps a game. He's going to play 10 to start, maybe less. It's going to be a progression, and then that's a good thing for him. He's going to get a chance to get himself acclimated with the speed of the NFL, understand Matt Eberflus's defense, and really build from there. So, like you said, because of the kind of, I don't want to call it a luxury because Chris Ballard worked hard to have the depth that they have at safety. But the luxury they have right now is they can bring him along slowly because they have guys they trust in the back part of their secondary.
All right, let's move to offensive line here. Jaleel Patterson asking, if an O-lineman goes down, do we have any depth that will do? I think that obviously we brought in Hunt, and from one thing that I've heard over the last few days is LaRaven Clark has been doing really, really well. And it's really nice to see because we were a couple guys that, haven't been super high on LaRaven Clark. He was obviously drafted in the 3rd round a couple years ago, never really has solidified himself, but it sounds as though kind of like Tyquan Lewis, he's kind of been coming into his own a little bit.
I totally agree. I honestly think, we talked about corner maybe being the biggest question on the defensive end. I think offensive line depth was probably the biggest question for the offense coming into the season. And LaRaven Clark is making me feel a whole lot better about what the Colts have at the swing tackle position. Because you lose Joe Haig, and that's a big loss. That guy was able to play not just the both tackle spots, but he could play guard too. I mean, that was a guy that you really worried about replacing. And LaRaven Clark at the last camp, not so great for him. And I think the Colts were maybe a little bit fortunate. They didn't really need to rely on him that last year. They got through the season with Costanzo and Braden Smith making it through the year completely healthy. So this year you're like, okay, if that probably won't happen again, if they need to insert LaRaven, what's going to happen? Well, judging by what I saw today and what we've been hearing from camp for the past week, he looks pretty good. I actually thought, especially he struggled a little bit in the passing. I think Justin Houston got him once. I think Muhammad got him once around the edge. He's not going to be perfect in pass protection. Where I thought he thrived was in the run game. He did a really good job. That big 47-yard run by Marlon Mack was on the right side. That was a pulling Quintin Nelson and LaRaven Clark. It's a good combination when you have Quintin Nelson there. But yeah, I mean, I honestly think I thought he played really well. They had a couple of good runs, and I thought he held himself really well. Again, you're comparing him to Braden Smith, who was one heck of a tackle, especially in the run game. And then also, you insert him on a line that's full of Pro Bowlers. You want him, you think he might stand out as the guy that is like, okay, this guy doesn't belong. I thought today, playing alongside some of the starters, I thought he looked like he belonged. Now, again, I'm not saying he's not Braden Smith's level by any means, but Braden Smith is still coming back from his own injury. He was on a pitch count today, played 20 snaps. He looked fine. But yeah, LaRaven Clark, I thought, played surprisingly well today. And again, if the Colts go into the season knowing that LaRaven can at least be a serviceable replacement level right tackle and left tackle, that's a huge win for them.
Yeah. And I'm curious, Jim, staying with the offensive line, how have some of those backup interior guys looked? Like, what have been your impressions day one with full pads on? What were your thoughts on them today? Yeah, I mean, like I said, definitely the starters I thought looked the best. I think that was kind of evident against the top defensive line. But guys like Elgin Camp, you're going to be able to count on him. Danny Pinter, I think they really high on him when they drafted him. I think that's somebody you're going to be able to count on eventually down the line. Again, I think when you're talking about offensive line, sometimes, especially the interior, you just want to make sure you're not blowing any big assignments right now, especially early on. And so it doesn't look like they have. And again, I think Elgin Camp is a guy they've been really high on, and I really think he's going to give them the depth that they need. I think at guard, I'm not nearly as worried. And then they have Patterson at center too. I forgot to mention him as another guy they really like. Yeah. But and he's looked good. But I just interior wise, I'm just not that worried about it. It was really on the outside of the line, the left tackle and right tackle, that I was a little concerned that if they lost Costanzo, once he put the retirement thing to the side, they lost Costanzo, it was going to be a big problem for them. And again, LaRaven Clark filling in for Anthony Costanzo, you're going to lose something there. But it may be not as big a drop off as we thought. That's great.
Last receiver I'm going to ask you about probably for a little bit, Fountain. Obviously, I've been a ginormous fan of Darius Fountain. We got to interview him as well a couple weeks ago, and I enjoy talking to that guy. He's definitely a heartfelt guy, and I know that he's been working really hard to find a spot on this roster. How's he look to you? I'm really hoping he makes that last few spots.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, man. That receiving core is super deep. I mean, you're talking about Zach Pascal, a guy I thought had a great season at 4, right? I mean, that's your 4th receiver. So then you got to compete. Now you got to be a guy that can either play special teams or a guy that's going to have a very specific role in the offense if you're going to try to make this team. Because there's a chance. I'm not saying it happens, but there's a chance they only roll with 5 receivers going into week 1. So Ashton Doolin's still in that mix. Desmond Patton's still in that mix. there's some guys in there that are for sure going to challenge. But yeah, again, I don't know how you can't cheer for a guy like Darius Fountain. The guy has just dealt with so much in his career and has battled back. Again, today, they didn't really go to the outside receivers very much. I thought, again, for me, watching Darius Fountain, it's just about watching him making cuts and playing at game speed and making sure he's kind of getting back to where he was during training camp last year. And I don't necessarily think he's there yet from what I saw, but I think he's heading in that direction. And he's staying healthy and he's staying on the field. And those are the most important things for him right now.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk about some tight ends here, because you to mention Mo Alley-Cox. He had himself a good play today. And we've been hearing a lot about Trey Burton, and I got to ask Frank Reich about, how are they going to use Trey Burton? Does he complement Jack Doyle very well? And I think this group of tight ends that they have right now, if they stay healthy, it complements what they try to do on offense so well with Phillip Rivers. Who stood out to you in the tight end group? How's Trey Burton been? How has Mo Alley-Cox been in the short time that he's come back?
Yeah, it was to me today. It was Trey. I thought Trey looked pretty good, and they were clearly trying to feature him. There was one pass that was really right in the beginning where Phillip Rivers was kind of looking right. I don't know if he was looking off a defender. Again, it's hard with no replays and things like that, but I don't know if he was looking off a defender, but he immediately came back. It was either a progression or he was going there all the way, but he had Trey Burton in the middle of the field for about a 15-yard gain and first down, and Trey was right where he needed to be and made a great catch. They tried to hook up a little bit later, deep down the field. Phillip Rivers was rolling to his right, and he tried to hook up with Trey, and it was a good throw, but it just kind of turned Trey around. So they're still developing that chemistry for sure. But I to go to your point, your maybe larger point about the tight ends, I really like what Trey Burton brings to the team in terms of replacing Eric Ebron, because we all, again, say what you want about Eric Ebron and how things ended with him, but he was such a critical cog to the offense. He was a guy that teams were very wary of in the red zone. Sometimes he'd get 1, 2, 3 defenders attributed to him. And he's a guy that they used for this playmaking ability. Now, I don't think Trey Burton is on the same level in terms of athleticism as Eric Ebron, but I think he's got better hands. And I think he's probably a more refined route runner. And one of the things that I like about him too is that he's a more willing blocker than Eric Ebron. And we talked about it maybe with those running backs about being able to have that versatility of run pass. Or, when you're on the field, what are you going to do? And the defenses know or they don't. For me, and when Eric Ebron was on the field, you had a pretty good feeling they weren't going to run. And if they were going to run, they weren't going to run to his side. And so with Trey Burton, I don't think that's as much of. I mean, again, you've got tight ends on either side, you're probably going to run to Jack Doyle's side. Jack Doyle's the better blocker. But if you run to Trey Burton's side, it's not going to be a loss. He's a pretty good blocker. And like I said, very willing. So I like that versatility that he adds. So maybe what they lose in a step in athleticism with Eric, they make up in that kind of duality with Trey Burton.
Yeah, that's what I really liked about Trey Burton is that, you do have that aspect of a receiving tight end like Eric Ebron, but a much more willing blocker, which obviously is a great thing. Now you can put 2 tight ends out there at any time, and you truly don't know whether or not Trey Burton's going to actually run a route or if he's going to actually block, because he can do both.
I think it's going to be. I think you're going to see maybe more. And the Colts ran a lot of 2 tight end sets last year. I think you might see more this year. And I actually think for in fun situations, you might see 2 tight end sets with Roosevelt Nix in there, and then. And then you're going to go, and then he's going to go play action, and defenses aren't going to know what the heck to do because it's going to be fun.
Great for the red zone. The red zone. All right. So 85 of you in here right now through Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Thank you guys so much for being in here. Keep the questions up. Cody, I'll let you go after one more question here. I got one more, and I want to go back to Xavier Rhodes. A lot of people, are questioning what he can actually do, right? And we've kind of said, last year he was hurt, right? He was hurt and he was obviously dealing with his issues and he was unable to play the way that we normally are accustomed to seeing him play. And, him coming back, he's in a better spot now, especially with his health. How has he looked like health-wise? Has he looked like he's back to 100% the way he was?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing about Xavier Rhodes, and again, I'm talking about watching him last year. To me, he looks like he's lost a little bit of a step in terms of just kind of pure speed and athleticism. And again, that's going to happen to guys who as they get older in the NFL. Not to say he's super old, but right. I just think that he doesn't have quite the same quickness that he had before. But he's still got the same size, and that's such a huge asset when you're playing quarterback. And again, when you're playing in a cover 2, which is what you're basically going to be playing in Matt Eberflus's defense. Size and, again, willingness to tackle and play near the line of scrimmage are huge assets for them. And so I guess to answer your question, he looks healthy. He looks like the guy that you want him to look like. But again, it's going to be really hard to tell until you go against, real competition, real game speed. And again, I just didn't see him get tested quite a bit today. I don't think we saw the corners get tested on the outside quite much today. And there's a lot of good things that happened today. And I think Joel Erickson at Indy Star wrote a lot of, observations about what you did see. I think one of the things that he probably left out, I'm guessing, is any major observations about the corners, just because you just didn't really get to see a lot of that this time around. But maybe we will soon.
Yeah. Jim, I see this question from somebody about the kicking position. They ask who's going to be the field goal kicker. They say, I like the rookie from Georgia, that'd be in Blankenship. Give me your thoughts. Who do you think? We saw some things about, it seemed like it was a better day for Chase today than Rodrigo, but give me your thoughts overall on the kicking competition. Where do you think they're at right now in terms of that battle?
I'm in Camp Chase at the moment. And not at the moment. I kind of entered that way, and today only confirmed what I thought. Okay, so there's a couple things about this. Is one, he's a proven commodity. Again, I'm not saying he's Adam Vinatieri, but this is the guy that kicked for you last year and kicked well. He missed one field goal. He made all of his extra points. Mm-hmm. He came in a really tough spot, replacing the greatest kicker of all time, and handled the pressure no problem. And this is a guy, remember, I think people forget this. He missed when he was kicking for San Francisco, and he played for 3 teams last year. When he was kicking for San Francisco, he missed a huge kick on Monday night. And he kicked it into the tunnel. He got made fun of on Twitter for quite a long time about that. And that's not easy for a young kicker's confidence. And I thought he handled it really, really well. Obviously didn't let it shake him. He came to the Indianapolis and kicked extraordinarily well. That was impressive to me. Today, he was the clear winner between the two. He hit all 8 of his field goals. I think the furthest was 53, a lot in the mid-30s, and I think a couple in the 45.
I thought he hit a 55-yarder from what I heard.
Maybe it was 50. Maybe it was 55, not 53. But yeah, I mean, to be fair, Blankenship hit his 50-yarder too. Okay. But Blankenship also missed 3 field goals today. He was 5 of 8. Chase was 8 of 8, and it just again, he's in a competition. They're trying to create this game-like atmosphere. They're putting pressure on him by saying if this guy kicks better, the other team, you got to run more. So there's all this different stuff, and Chase just handles it in stride and kicked really well today. The other thing I will say, I am no kicking expert, believe me. But I when I saw Chase kick today, the ball just looked like it was like on that 50-yarder we're talking about. It just looked like it had about 10, 12 more yards of distance. While Blankenship, he crushed it. I mean, and Blankenship's looked like it got through, but it just didn't look like it had the same zip as Chase. So right now, I'm pretty firmly in Camp Chase.
That is interesting because so many people we've heard from our listeners and Colts Nation, really, they're saying, man, Rodrigo has such a giant leg, and Chase McLaughlin goes and does that. I don't think people are giving Chase McLaughlin credit for how big of a leg he has, too.
I completely agree. Again, Hot Rod is Hot Rod, and he deserves all the fun that the nickname and all the accolades that he got. He was one hell of a kicker at Georgia, and a fun guy. And like I said, I get all that, and I get why people like him a lot. But man, Chase kicked so well last year and has done nothing. To me, when this competition started, it was going to be Rodrigo has to go out and win it. He has to just go take it from Chase. For Chase, just pretty much is defending his position because we saw him do it last year. And to me, from so far, I don't see that Rodrigo's gone and taken it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been team Chase the whole time, really. Yeah. We were always the thing of if it's not broke, don't fix it. Exactly. I mean, why change something if it's not bad? This was a question I missed, and I wanted to hear about this one. Winning the battle between DeForest and Nelson. I saw a picture of them in camp today. Who has been winning that? I don't know.
Well, I mean, today it was Quintin in the offensive line. They were able to control the line of scrimmage, I think, for the majority of the time today. Gotcha. I don't think that's going to happen every day. DeForest is an all-pro defensive tackle and one of the highest paid defensive tackles in the league for a reason. So he's going to get his victories even against a guy like Quintin Nelson. But to me, there was no question. Again, one-on-one wise, I wouldn't say that I saw a particular one guy dominate the other, but just in terms of the run game, it was Quintin Nelson in the offensive line that won today.
Awesome. And here's a question I've been seeing a bunch of people ask me. How is Roosevelt Nix? What's he been up to? I haven't heard a lot. Obviously, you're not going to hear much about the fullback situation, but obviously the Colts brought him in for the ability to make the run attack much better. And I've kind of made jokes at the fact that we could potentially see a Roosevelt Nix touchdown at some point, like with him kicking out for a pass, because like people are not going to anticipate that, right? You never anticipate the fullback actually making a catch.
No, he'll do it. No, Frank likes to get creative like that kind of stuff, especially near the goal line and the red zone. I mean, this is the one of the guys that did the Philly special. He's gonna get weird during. I love when Frank gets weird because some of that stuff is like genius. But Roosevelt Nix, to answer your question, didn't practice today and hasn't practiced for the past couple days, so wasn't out there. Didn't get a chance to see him. But he will be an important part of that. Like there are going to be games where Roosevelt Nix plays like 4 snaps. And you're barely going to notice. And then there are going to be games where he's out there for like 20 snaps because Frank Reich just goes, I'm going to run it down these guys' throats. And it's going to be a Roosevelt Nix day. And he's going to be leading the way for Jonathan Taylor and Marlon Mack. And they're going to run for 250 yards. And you're going to love Roosevelt Nix that day. And like I said, there's other times you won't see him much in the running game. Well, you will see him every time is on special teams. This is a guy that is underrated for his special teams contributions. He's been very good in Pittsburgh as a special teams player. He's going to play that role in Indianapolis as well. So you're going to see him out there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
90 people in here.
Jim.
90 people. Keep it up, guys. Great. Keep it up. Yeah, go ahead, Cody.
Yeah. I'm curious. This question made me curious about this. What does the Colts schedule look like after today? So obviously they have Saturday. We're going back to Lucas Oil Stadium. What is their schedule like the rest of this week?
So they're off tomorrow, and then they got practice the next 3 days. And then, like you said, they do this thing at Lucas Oil again on Saturday. And then after this week, it's kind of back to like that regular season. Training camp is technically over. It's back to that kind of regular season thing, which stinks for us in a way because that means our access for practice will be limited from like, today we got a couple hours, obviously, down to the normal during the year, about 20 minutes. And so we won't see as much. But no, 3 more practices. Is that right? Am I doing the math right? Tuesday off, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Lucas Oil at Saturday. Yeah. And then we're back to, I think Sunday's off, if I remember correctly. And then, then it's kind of back into that. They're going to get into that regular season schedule.
Awesome. How the backup linebackers looked. I've heard I think it was yesterday that Zaire Franklin's been really putting on a show. What's been that with Zaire Franklin, EJ Speed, all those guys? Those
are the 2 guys that you hit the 2 that I was going to talk about. Zaire Franklin has looked really good. This is a guy that it looks like he's a valuable special teams player. But this is one of the things Chris Ballard has kind of talked about is like, I don't think you realize, like everybody kind of talks about the star levels, like players they have at the position in Darius Leonard, the potential of Bobby Okereke, and the stability of Anthony Walker. They got some legit players behind them. And Zaire Franklin is one of those guys. He can play. They drafted Glasgow, so we're going to see what he can do a little bit. But and then the other guy, I really like EJ Speed. I think EJ Speed is kind of in that mold of what they draft, and guys like Darius Leonard and guys like Bobby Okereke. He's very fast, pretty rangy, long. And so that's what they like to see out of him. I think he's just a little bit more raw than they were coming out of college. But I thought today he looked really, really good. He made he stuffed a run. It was like, I think it was a 4th and short, and he stuffed a play in the hole. That was a really solid play out of him. So EJ Speed is a guy that I expect to make this team and to contribute on special teams, but also to get some rotation in because Matt Eberflus likes to rotate these guys in. And while Darius Leonard never comes off the field when he's healthy, I still expect to see them get EJ Speed maybe a few snaps a game, not a ton, but a few.
Yeah, I mean, he is really a physical freak. Like just looking at EJ Speed, 6'4", almost I think 225, fast as can be. Like we saw last year, Jim, in that preseason game. I mean, EJ Speed was everywhere. I haven't seen a linebacker that quick in a long time. I mean, it was really impressive. So he definitely has a lot of upside if obviously if he puts it all together. Coming from Tarleton State to the NFL is obviously a big leap. So, but it's exciting to see what happens. I want to get your thoughts because we talked about the wide receivers. Who right now are your front runners for wide receiver 5? Let's say they keep 6. So who would be your front runners for 5 and 6?
Oh boy. I'm going to pull up the roster. Honestly, I'm going to do this right now.
Right, Derek,
I want to make sure.
While he's
mine was Marcus Johnson. I've been saying that because Marcus Johnson been in the system. It just has been that reliable option when they needed him last year, especially. Mm-hmm. And I really want Darius Fountain. I know that a lot of times when you keep that 6th receiver, you keep him for the guy that can play special teams. I get that. Yeah. But I think that with the way the Colts special teams looks now, because they've added some pieces to that secondary, some guys that have played special teams and, guys that can return the ball now. I just don't know if I would rather have the big play Darius Fountain in there versus Ashton Doolin or anyone else.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I get that. I actually kind of agree about Marcus Johnson. That's a guy that I like just because we saw what he's able to do in a pinch. He can kind of play in those roles. He's got sure hands. He actually made a few nice deep plays, if we remember, against Tampa last year. So that was a guy that they like. And like you mentioned, played in Philadelphia with Frank. Definitely knows the system. I like him as the wide receiver 5 or 6. But I don't think it's going to be Darius, unfortunately. At least that's my instinct. Like, they really like Desmond Patton. Obviously, they drafted him this year in the 6th round. He's a size speed freak. He's raw, but I think they like what they have in him. I think he's got it's to me, it'll come down to him and Ashton Doolin. Those are my 2 guesses for that 6th spot. Doolin is a guy, I don't think people give him credit for how fast he is. He can burn. Ashton Doolin is really, really fast. And they really like what he did on special teams last year too. So if he comes along as a receiver a little bit, that's a guy I expect to. Like I said, I think I did my preseason my roster projections a while ago, but Ashton Doolin is the guy that I've really liked and that the Colts have really liked for a long time. And so I think he's going to make that. I'm giving him the edge up along with Pittman and Marcus Johnson. I think it comes down to those 3 for, again, if they keep 5 and 6, 2 more spots at the wide receiver, I think it comes down to those 3 guys.
That's kind of where I'm at too. Like I'm going to go probably Johnson because the lack of preseason. He already knows the system. He knows Reich all the way back from Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And also just the special teams aspect with Doolin. I think that makes sense. And I think the cool thing is with Fountain and with Pittman, you can keep them on your practice squad. I feel like they're the type of guys you can sneak on your practice squad, and probably not a lot of teams are going to like steal them off your practice squad. That's kind of where I am on those guys.
It could be. I mean, but it also could be that a guy like Marcus Johnson is a veteran. People already know him. I hate to say it this way, but maybe they're bored by him, so they don't necessarily. So if you cut him, you could always bring him back when you needed to bring him back, kind of a thing. Like maybe that's the way.
That's true.
People think. I don't know. Like I said, and so that's again. I think keeping Marcus Johnson around makes sense just because we've all seen what happens when your receiving core is devastated by injuries, and you want to have a guy that you can just plug in and play, and that's Marcus Johnson. But again, maybe if they're saying, well, we don't want Desmond Patton to get claimed by somebody else. We want to bring him along, so we got to keep him on the roster as opposed to hiding him on the practice squad. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, but it's going to be a fierce battle for those final spot or 2.
92 people in the stream right now. Awesome, guys. I think that actually is highest viewership we've ever had in here. 84 of you on YouTube right now. Smash the like button, guys. Thank you so much for being in here. Keep asking us questions for those that are just tuning in or people have been in here for a while. Speaking of no preseason, Cody, you mentioned that, and we have to go to this one.
That's perfect.
The quarterback 3 battle. We got the first chance to kind of see some relative game action from Jacob Eason today. How has he looked, Jim? I mean, obviously people were really talking about that arm.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, like I said, he didn't throw that many passes. He hasn't thrown. Again, I talked to some of my colleagues during practice today, and they haven't really seen him do too much. And he threw, I think, 4 passes today, completed 2 of them. But the thing that stands out, even when he incompletes passes, is he's got a rocket. It's a rifle of an arm, and it's easy power. It reminds me, I've been watching a lot of baseball because just had a kid, and I've had time to just sit. We watch like baseball. And when you watch guys like my team is the White Sox, but I watch guys like Eloy Mena. You know, I'm going way too far down the rabbit hole, but you know when they say that the ball just sounds different off a guy's bat. You know what I mean? Like, and it goes like that extra 20 feet that you weren't expecting. That's kind of the way that when I watch Jacob Eason throw, that's kind of how I get that same feeling. Like he releases the ball, it's real smooth and easy, but it comes out like a snap, and it's just you could see why the Colts watch him and fall in love with a guy like that because it's so much power. Now they just kind of have to harness it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, my goodness, like there's a reason why why we were so excited. The Colts somehow got him in the 4th round. That arm talent is second to none. All right. I had another one here. What would you say, Jim, are the weak spots right now? If you had to pick a couple weak spots, what would you say those would be?
Well, yeah, God, that would have been an easy question before today. I would have said the backup tackle spot. So hold on 1 second. Well, I will say, I'll say this. I'm a little bit worried about tight end depth. I like Mo Cox quite a bit, again, as a tight end 3 of what they have. But Jack Doyle's been a little bit banged up, not, already in camp, in practice today. He's kind of had been banged up the last couple of years. And you don't know. Trey Burton's had lots of problems with injuries, especially last year. All this, like I said, if you lose 1 or 2 of those guys, and Mo dealt with injuries last year too. it's a little bit of a problem. I mean, again, considering how important tight ends are to this offense, all three guys have some injury issues. I kind of thought they might sign or draft a tight end just to kind of bring somebody along for later in the season. They didn't end up doing that. Yeah. They did sign Farrah Green. So maybe he is somebody that they like and can develop in that way. But I'm just a little worried about that in terms of on the offense. And then defense, I still think, I don't call it a weakness yet. It's kind of a wait and see. It's the corners. We talked about this already. I just need to see what Xavier Rhodes is. If he's the guy he was last year, that's going to be a problem. And if Rock turns into the guy that he was against Denver in some of the previous games, that's a problem. I mean, you still have TJ Carey, who is good. And it's good, it's a good backup. But again, not a guy you probably want to start. You'd like better as a, filling in for Kenny Moore in the slot kind of a guy. You have some depth behind him. But when you lost Marvell Tell, when he opted out, that kind of, you lost your developmental guy and a guy that you maybe felt a little bit better on the outside. So corner is kind of the position that I would worry the most about going into the year.
Yeah. All right. So I want to ask a couple more quick questions here. Quick one, some guys that we haven't talked about yet. Justin just brought this one up. Has Wilkins been making any noise at all? I haven't heard much from Wilkins as of recently.
Yeah, I saw him out there today, but like I said, I wouldn't say he's making any noise. It's going to be really hard for him to crack this rotation. It's such a talented running back rotation right now with Marlon Mack and Jonathan Taylor. I mean, that they've been pretty clear about it's 1A, 1B. And then Nyheim Hines, they've pretty much said, we're going to throw to him a lot, obviously, but we want to get him a little bit more involved in the running game as well, because he kind of got phased out a little bit last year of the running game. And I think they want to make sure, again, it's for Frank, I think it's a lot about making sure defenses say, okay, if Nyheim Hines is in, they're only going to throw. He doesn't want that. And the same with Marlon Mack. They're only going to run, or we don't have to worry about Marlon Mack if they do drive back to pass. They want to have all three guys be able to do play all three downs. And so, and I'm not saying Wilkins can't catch or is not a good back. He had some really good games last year. He's clearly a talented runner. I think they're going to try to find a way to keep him on the roster. But no, I wouldn't say he's made a lot of noise. And again, unless somebody gets hurt, it's just not a guy I see getting many carries.
Yeah. I know you got to get going here in a minute, but Cody, do you have anything else here? I do have one more after, if you got anything.
Well, there's one more question that we could potentially ask. This is a little bit more of a hot take type of question, but we can go for it here.
All right.
This could be a dumb question, but if the Colts fail to make the playoffs, would you consider Chris Ballard or Frank Reich in the hot seat? Interesting question. That's
hesitant to answer, I think.
probably not. And here's why. If that, okay, so say, in the alternate reality, and it's a great day to talk about it since this is Andrew Luck retirement day.
Oh my gosh. 1 year to the day, man.
Oh,
1 year to the day. We don't have to talk about it much. All I will say is that they get a bit of a reprieve, right? I mean, they built this thing to be around Andrew Luck, and all of a sudden they get thrown this ridiculous curveball. They tried Jacoby Brissett. Again, I know people are unhappy with Jacoby Brissett, but this is a backup quarterback that played very well in the first 8 games. Didn't play well in the back 8, but kept them competitive in that in a while. So, but that was still tough. I mean, you're still dealing with the fact that you had a backup quarterback as your starter for 16 games. That was happening, and you had one where you missed. And so, and that was Hoyer's not exactly. I'm a big Brian Hoyer fan in terms of, I like what he does for a team, but that was not his best game when he got the opportunity to start. That is for sure. So that was tough. And so this year they bring in Phillip Rivers, but we all know this is a stopgap situation. This is one, probably 2 years. Everybody seems to be optimistic about a second year if things go well. But then you have to kind of wait and see what the next thing is. And maybe it's Eason, maybe it's not. But I kind of think that they have this. First of all, Jim Irsay loves those guys. Loves Chris Ballard. Loves Frank Reich. I think trusts them, believes in them. Full stop, 100%. And so this season would have to go in the toilet. I'm talking 4 or 5 wins for that to even be a thing. And I don't see. We just talked about this roster. This is not a 4 or 5 win team. It's just not.
It's not.
Something would have to go horribly wrong. And again, if it's horribly wrong with injuries, then can you really blame the coach and the GM? Probably not. I don't see these guys being on the hot seat again. If it's 2 years in a row of the post Andrew Luck craziness, so this year and next year of the Colts really struggling, then maybe. But I just don't see their seats getting warm this year. And like I said, unless it's just a dumpster fire, and I can't really see that happening.
Yeah.
Yes. We got 105 of you in the chat right now. Wow. Absolutely crazy. But last question here, and then I think we'll let you go. I know you got some stuff to do. one guy that somebody mentioned here just recently, and it's a guy that's really slipped under the radar, and that's Grover Stewart. Cody and I have been talking a lot about, Grover Stewart's really coming into his own. Obviously, over the last few years, he's been getting more and more big play potential. What do you think of him so far? How's he looked? I mean, I haven't seen a ton of him yet.
No, Grover Stewart. It's funny because I can't take credit for this. I believe this was George Bremer, who I hope you guys follow at the Herald Bulletin.
Absolutely.
Really great. I believe he told this to Joel, who relayed it to me. So there's the telephone. But I think what he did was he compared Grover Stewart or Tyquan Lewis this year to Grover Stewart last year. So Grover Stewart had a really good training camp and was kind of coming on. And then it worked throughout the season. Grover Stewart had a really, really good season, very solid, much more reliable than we ever thought he would be. That is what I think we're seeing out of Tyquan Lewis. And so now when we see Grover Stewart make plays in camp, it's not like, oh, who's this guy? What's going on here? This is really great. It's like, yeah, that's Grover Stewart. That's what he does. And so I think that's why you're not seeing him pop up on Twitter as much, or people are not talking about him. He's still very solid. He's still be very reliable. He's going to play plenty of snaps. And I think the Colts have to be really happy with the way he's developed into a very reliable defensive tackle.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Jim, so much for coming on, man, and hopefully all is well with you and your family. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and happy to do this again anytime. I feel bad leaving, but I got to do a little bit of writing so you guys can read some more about what happened today.
Yeah, man. Yeah, be sure to follow Jim on Twitter. I know you have some good nuggets of info, man, and all Colts fans should give you a follow and give you a read and all that fun stuff. So, all right, man. Well, I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your evening, and can't wait for Colts Camp, man, to continue going on.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for everybody watching. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, that'll do it for this stream, guys. We had over 105 people in here at one point. We're breaking records every day. I freaking love it, man.
Guys, we were just on here yesterday, and we had what was it? 85 was the most we
thought that was a lot.
we thought that was a lot. Y'all were driving me nuts in here. We had 93 of you on YouTube alone in here today. All of you that are in the chat right now, every single one of you, even the people that did leave, had to do some stuff, whatever. Y'all are real ones. We appreciate everything you guys do for us. Thank you for showing up to these live streams. We enjoy it. And look, I'm very sorry we weren't able to get to a lot of your questions. You guys had some really good questions, but obviously Jim had some stuff to do. It was an hour. We got what we needed to do. You guys got a general idea of what happened at camp today. If you got here late, make sure to rewatch the stream when it comes out. It'll be uploaded at some point soon. You'll get a chance to rewatch it. So there are plenty of opportunities for you. But thank you guys so much to every single one of you that were in these streams. Keep spreading the news, guys. On the road to 3,000 subs. Getting really close to it. We're trying to do it before the season starts. Not much longer to go. So thank you guys so much. For Cody and myself, and as always, go Colts.